All right, welcome back to another episode of Paladin Financial Talk. I'm your host, Nikki Foley. Joining me today is our co-host over there, Mr. Tony Shore.
Hey, Nikki, great
Uh,
to be here with you. I'm
thank you.
excited about our show today.
I am too, and I
Yeah.
think we should start with a drum roll. I don't know if you actually have a drum roll like over there.
Oh, I don't. I don't
Oh.
think I have a drum roll, but I have some applause.
There you go.
There we go. And I
Right.
say that because in celebration of Women's History Month, we're dedicating this month to exploring that intersection of finance and empowerment. And today, I've been talking about this 2 weeks ago when I was on, that we have a very special guest and somebody that I think the world of. So Mariann Montagne, she's a chartered financial analyst. I have got to know her over the last probably 7 to 10 years, and she is now consulting on her own. So president of Mosaic Consulting, and she's doing a lot also to just get financial information out there in our world. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So Tony, just join me in helping
Wow.
welcome
Huge.
Mariann.
Huge. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's such a big get. It's so exciting. I have the sound effects ready to go for Mariann today. Mariann, it's great to see you again. You're on so many different shows. You are an expert in this field. Nikki, what a huge get.
That's what I think.
Right?
That's what I'm feeling
A
today.
huge get for the show to have Mariann Montagne on. This is a big deal, and here's why. I'm going to list you have so many credentials, Mariann. I have to have, folks, I'm going to have to read because I don't have them all memorized. There are so many. Mariann has 30 years of experience, over 30 years, working with both institutional and high net worth clients. Tremendous investment experience during that tenure. You served as part of the portfolio management team for Gradient Investments. And prior to that, you were the senior investment analysis and co-portfolio manager for a Minneapolis-based RIA firm. You were the senior investment analysis at Thrivent Asset Management. You acted as an assistant director of research covering growth and value equities for another firm. You've served on the global board of the Consumer Analyst Group of New York, otherwise known as CAGNY, for several years, including posts as president and conference chair. Wow. Your media highlights: you've been on CNBC, Bloomberg TV, Fox Business News. You've been quoted in Barron's, The Wall Street Journal, Investors Business Daily, Reuters, Fortune, NPR, The Washington Post, amongst others. Mariann, is this right? Did I get all that right? Is all that true?
All of that is true, and then some.
And that's absolutely why this is such a good catch for us. Is there anything that you want to add that our listeners should know about your background?
Well, just that I think it's for most women being in the finance industry, it's like doing all the dance steps of like a Fred Astaire, but in high heels and going backwards.
Wow. That sounds tough.
And what I feel like is so exciting for me, and as a friend to you and where you're at right now, is you have now transitioned to have more freedom and flexibility. You're running the show. You're a consultant both on all the things that we talked about from an analyst perspective, but you're also getting information out to just the consumer and educating them through a variety of different ways through your Thriving with, go through the name of the
Thriving with Your Money Tree.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And you have a website to go along with that. So tell us just a little bit about what you're doing with your time now.
Well, with Thriving with Your Money Tree, I'm trying to help people understand the financial markets. And it's very important, I think, to everyone. A lot of people appear to be interested, but women in particular really need to know their stuff. So I want to help people. And with some of my work, I'm starting with people who don't even have a bank account. I mean, they know nothing about finances, all the way up to people who are, trying to choose from all their choices in the 401k that's presented to them. So it's just a broad way of having a series of podcasts and some other thought pieces on my website. Again, thrivingwithyourmoneytree.com. And it's fun. It's fun to get people out there calling in and asking questions. And yeah, I'm having a good time with it.
That's excellent. And I have to tell a quick story about Mariann. So Mariann spoke at one of Paladin's client appreciation events or client education events on the market and what was going on. And she has this beautiful way of taking really complex information and making it simple and making it in a way that you feel like, with all these accolades that Mariann has in the background, you think, oh my goodness, this could be really intimidating. But she is just the gal next door telling you, it's just beautiful. So if you are somebody that, as our listeners here, if you want to know more and you want to hear from somebody that has just this beautiful resume and has walked the walk and talked the talk, I really encourage you going to her website there and following along with what she's doing.
Which is It's Thriving with Your Money Tree, right?
.com.
Right. .com. So, and you're doing podcasts, YouTube videos,
yes.
Everything.
You'll
right?
find me on Pinterest and Instagram and Reels, all kinds of places.
Yeah, what a lot of great resources for our listeners and viewers out there, Nikki. Again, that's thrivingwithyourmoneytree.com. Just the way it sounds, easy.
Right. And most of the recordings come from my potting shed, which is a potting shed that has become a potting shed.
Yeah. And we're going to add that link also in the show notes for this show.
Well, that's fantastic. So as we kick off the show, the importance here of our podcast this month has been, to focus on the Women's History Month, but the historical significance of women in finance and how they have inspired change. And so for me, I asked Mariann to join us because she has paved the way for so many women. And we had the opportunity to talk before we started the show of a number of people that I know of how she has really just gone ahead of us, and she inspired in so many ways. And I know just a couple off the top of my head who are really having the best years of their life because of some of the inspiration that Mariann has given them, and knowledge and confidence. And so for somebody to have somebody like Mariann here, she has great information, not just for women, but for women and men and consumers. And it's all in a manner that's relatable.
Right. What started out early in my career is there was one woman named Muriel Siebert who became the first woman to have a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. And she got that back in 1967 at a time where women were not allowed to open a bank account without a man co-signing for them. So she was pretty inspirational. And now we see Barron's list of top 100 women in finance that came out just recently. And I'm thinking, only 100? You're only pointing to 100? There's so many top women in finance nowadays that it's a pretty limited list. But I think it's really because women have had all these educational opportunities, and it's led to many more women in accounting and economics and finance roles all around the globe.
That's good. Since you took a little trip, down memory lane and taking a step back, let's do a little bit on where did Women's History Month come from? And I'm going to put you guys both on the spot a little bit here. Whoever feels like they have the answer, you can just say, ooh, me here. So, all right. So who was the first president to proclaim National Women's History Week?
I think that would be Jimmy Carter.
Okay, ding, ding, ding. So now that we know
Very good. I did not know that.
That's good. That's probably why you just sat over there quietly and let Mariann.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we know it's in the Carter realm there.
Yeah.
All right, what year do you think we're talking about? A realm. You can just get in the ballpark here. Any idea?
Whoa,
79?
Yeah, I'm going to say around 77, 79.
Yeah, 1980. So very good.
Oh, we were close.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, this one may, if you step back and think, you might say, yes, this makes sense. What state do you think was where this came to be and this was all started?
Georgia?
I'm going to say California.
California, yeah. Oh. And oftentimes that's probably not surprising. A lot of things start
I said Georgia because that's where Jimmy Carter was from.
Okay, that was good, Tony.
That's why.
That's good to know how you get to answer sometimes. I have to do that in our morning meetings sometimes when I'm over here. It's like, this is how I got to that. I did have some thought behind it. Okay, who do you think, or how do you think this movement got started? Like, what profession of individuals started this?
Ooh, I'm going to say teachers.
Teachers. And that's exactly right. And so I'll tell you a little story about, and I'm sure there's other, you could look back at history and very significant individuals that had a role, or, movements towards recognizing women. But this is kind of the official. So there was a group of teachers in California that couldn't find an answer in the textbook to a question that a student had asked about the role of women in history. And that's just what was happening, is it wasn't getting documented. Didn't mean it wasn't happening, but it wasn't getting written down. And so that was the initiation to get this rolling. And let's make sure it's giving an opportunity for women, girls, to see themselves as makers of history, but also recognizing for the young men and boys that there is more information out there about the roles that women were playing, and making sure that they could see that experience. And so
Right.
I thought that was a good story. And that brings us back to Mariann. As I talk about history, or makers of history, I certainly see Mariann in that way. So Mariann, I'm going to ask you a few questions here over the next little bit, if that sounds good. And I'd love to just hear your history. It doesn't have to be super formal, but tell us
Okay.
some stories, or wherever you want to go with this.
Okay.
Okay, so Mariann's going to start with some history lessons for us here. So how do you believe women's contributions to finance have evolved over the years, and what steps has the industry taken to, promote gender equality and so forth?
Yeah. So again, starting with Muriel Siebert, there's now women on many, many boards of directors across the U.S., across the globe. And there's really been a big push to get women into those higher levels of management. And, women should be bringing up other women from within those companies to replace them, or to just advocate for them within the company. So, given the success of women in top management, I believe more companies will be following in adding women to their boards of directors. And then those women should be appreciating the skills and experience of other women in other roles in all organizations. But to me, it was Madeleine Albright who put it most perfectly. She's the former Secretary of State for the U.S. She said there's a special place in hell for women who won't help other women. So in those top roles, they should be helping to bring women up the ladder.
Yeah, that's really good. I'll share just a little bit of experience here. There is, and I have seen it. So 20 years with the same company is kind of how I, had my upbringing. HR hat on a lot along the way, but you would often see people come in from corporations that started in our organization, and not Paladin, but my previous life. And there was this clawing to figure out how to get to the next role, how to be the one that's seen on stage, how to have all these accolades. And that's not the environment that I had grown up in. And that was really hard for me to get my hands around. Why would we be looking at it like that?
Mhm.
What if somebody was ahead of you and you could learn from them? And there's a whole other way about going about things. And how do we promote each other? How do we partner together? Because certainly more minds are better than one.
Right.
And
right.
so I do think what you have said there is, and I ended our last show when I was on about how important mentorship is. And I think we're going to kind of touch base at the end on this, but yes, like, find your person. If you are still climbing the ladder and you're looking to achieve something, find that person in front of you and figure out how you can learn from them. Doesn't have to be formal, it can be informal.
Right.
Or if you have accomplished a lot and you have the ability to bring somebody along with you, do it. It goes such a long ways.
Right. Right. The ladder doesn't go straight up. I mean, there's a lot of times people could step down on the ladder, or 2 steps down. And it's good to have others there who will support you, as opposed to looking at you as, oh, that one who was clawing, and now that person's out on their own. So just a life lesson for everybody.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I do think, as we talk about what is the industry, or what is society, corporations, what are they doing to help promote, and it has to be the foundation of a lot of this. Like the doors have to be opened, and so you can see where your opportunities and help set the vision of where you could be.
Right.
There was something else, Mariann, that came up in one of our other podcasts or just conversation in our office actually as well, is the role of being your own business owner is so much more common today than it was even just 10 years ago. And I think that has to do with social media and just all the access to be able to provide products and service and so forth. And being able to be your own boss as a female is one, helping change that wage gap that women really can do well for themselves. And as they have employees come under them, that wage gap goes away.
Right.
And it's such a key piece as,
Yeah.
you think about being a small business owner and being able to provide product and services, it's also doing something for that wage gap.
Yeah, I sat on the board of Homeowners Association. We had $1 million budget, so it was a pretty good size. I think it was growing to $2 million by the time I left. And in there, I thought, we really need an independent auditor. So I went out and looked for a woman auditor, and I found one who lived in a homeowners association, and she audited other homeowner associations, and, she was a perfect fit. But, I think there's a tendency for people to say, well, just tell me who you use and blah, 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 and just go with the status quo. And, I made a very concerted effort to make sure that we had another woman professional who would, get standard wages and do the job for us. And
Boy, that's great perspective. And that's back to your original point, is bringing somebody along with you.
Absolutely.
And opening the doors for others. So what a great perspective on that. And what you said there, it's so common sense. You just ask for a referral and you go with what oftentimes is easy.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel good about it because you know their background and you know that somebody can vouch for them. But what you did there really opened the door for another
Right.
female. So
Right.
thanks for sharing that story. Okay, so next question. In your experience, what unique challenges or opportunities have women encountered in the financial sector? And what steps, and what strategies have you found effective in overcoming these obstacles?
Well, first of all, in my experience, I would go to meetings of, say, 100 to 250 people and find that you could count the women on one hand early on in my career. And, even in the office, I was usually the only professional woman in the group. And, coming into there, even if I went to the same university as someone in my office, I didn't belong to a fraternity. I didn't belong to a golf club. I didn't follow the ball players or the ball games. So I was kind of left out of the water cooler type conversation. And I was a mom with kids after a while, and I had responsibilities. So I didn't go out drinking every week. I dressed professionally. And so I was, considered kind of apart from what they were accustomed to, I guess. And it ended up I was not invited to go out on the golf weekends or cigar nights or go out drinking weekends, Vegas weekends or snowmobile weekends or whatever bonding outings the men had in my department. And so how did I deal with these? What was effective in overcoming this? Well, I worked hard and I was assertive with my findings. I was focused on success and I worked to exceed expectations. I was quick to compliment others on a job well done, to be a team player, collegial type approach in the office. I did my grassroots research. I went and did things that a lot of other people don't do. I took breakfast meetings. It worked for me when most people didn't want to do breakfast meetings. Might have had something to do with drinking the night before. But anyways, I enjoyed learning something new every day. And if I didn't know the answer to a question, I'd say, I'm going to go find out for you. So that's what really overcame things, and people gave me their ear, and they put trust in my work. But let me give you an example. Early on in my career, when the internet stocks were the rage, I was at a mutual fund company that was very involved with internet stocks. And my responsibility was consumer type stocks, so food, beverage, household products, those kind of things. And I went into this board meeting of 40 investment professionals, and I recommended this particular consumer stock. And one of the principal directors of the organization just looked at me and said very loudly, "Sit down. We want to talk about another internet stock." But I was unfazed, and I just continued on with my presentation as if he hadn't spoken. They took my recommendation, and before 2 years had passed, the internet stocks were down 97%. You got 3 cents back on the dollar for those internet stocks. And at that same time period, my recommendation, and we bought it in our family, it was up over 70%. And we continued to hold the thing, and it's grown, at what we call a 10 bagger. It's 10 times what we paid for it, with very, very high dividends, also contributing to total return. So it's continued to outperform the market for decades, growing faster than the overall stock market. And then fast forward 10 years, and again, I haven't changed. I'm still pretty assertive with my findings. I went to networking functions, and I was interacting with my company's clients, and some of my colleagues called me the bulldog. Maybe you heard this. Because I very quickly and effectively engaged with these clients and prospective clients, and helped to build confidence between them and our investment philosophy and our results. But yeah, some people thought that wasn't a good thing, that I was a bulldog, but I took it as a compliment.
There you go. I feel like
That's great.
Her story there, Tony, it deserves another round of applause.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like it.
What I like about what you said, though, is clearly, as she talks here, you can tell how intelligent Mariann is. But taking it back to all of our listeners, is she told us things, control what you can control. And that's exactly what Mariann did. She put her head down and she controlled what she could control and what was within her realm. And
Right.
I think that's a great life lesson, no matter where you go.
Very true. Very true.
The other thing that through the years, as you are in corporate, you learn a few things along the way. And one of the things that I learned when the terminology bulldog, and that can be taken a couple different ways. You cannot spend your time thinking about what others think and whether that is a good or a bad thing. You keep moving. And if you know you're doing the right thing, then it doesn't really matter.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was good advice. Mariann, I know something that you have done an incredible job in the past, and I probably have these all off the top of your head, is you have some really good statistics as it relate to how much wealth women control, and just around the world of women in finance for the end consumer. Do you mind sharing some of that?
Oh, not at all. I think it's very impressive, because right now women control about 11 billion, that's a trillion in household income across the U.S.
Wow.
And they're set to control over 30 trillion in the next 3 to 5 years. There's a lot of older people dying off, and the money moves down to the next generation. Men happen to die before women do, so a lot of women end up as widows with the nest egg to control. And it's very impressive. I mean, that's $30 trillion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that those are things that, as our listeners, they may say, well, that's not me. Well, that's a portion of that is you.
Yeah.
And I see through our practice how it continues to look a little differently. Sometimes you will have a female come in and they will be clearly the person that is, we kind of head of household,
Mhm.
but you have a lot of times where it's just not of interest, and there's just they're not. And I want to come back to that here in a second to talk a little bit more about it. But to go along with your statistics, there have been some really good things that we have read recently, and we've polled, and we continue to work from. But 2021 study found that 67% of women now invest outside of just their retirement accounts, and that is up 44% since 2018.
That's huge.
Wow.
Huge.
It's trending in the right direction.
Yes.
And so I love to see that. Another thing that I just saw recently, and I think this actually has a 2024 date, at least the article did, that there is definitely a shift in it being collaborative among partners. And that's up to like 60% claim in this study that they are active participants in the financials at home, which tremendous.
Yes.
And to add to that, 99% being involved at least in some way.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like those things combined support where we're going, and there is a big shift in the role that women want to play. Any thoughts on really why that's coming to be and why now?
Well, I think, first of all, it's probably the internet and the leveling of the playing field. There's a lot of information out there on finance and investments that's very easily accessible. So you learn a little bit, and it's in my mind, you want to know more and more, and it's really out there, it's available. Um, but I think also women tend to invest not with the idea that, oh, my percentage gain is going to outperform some index this year, or I need a certain thing, and I need to get a certain dollar amount out of my investment. Women tend to invest because they want to give back to the community. And again, with the leveling of the playing field and all the needs that there are in the community, particularly education and healthcare, I think women are thinking, how can I, be a significant contributor in my own mind, in my own way? And they're just looking for ways to do that. So investments are the way to do it. And I think a shining example here is a 93-year-old lady, a former professor at the Albert Einstein School of Medicine in the Bronx, New York, who happened to have $1 billion, and she gave it to the school for the education of doctors so that all students, this was just very recently, all students have free tuition this will go on into perpetuity. This is the largest donation, $1 billion made to any medical school in the country, but it covers the education of all the future doctors.
Isn't that
Just
fantastic?
awesome. What a
Yeah.
great example.
I saw that news story, the largest single donation to any college or university in the history of the United States.
Yeah, came from a woman.
Yes.
A 93-year-old former professor.
I love that.
Yep.
One of the things that Mariann did there, and she's speaking from experience on so much of what she's sharing with us, is one, I had read an article, and I made mention of this in a previous podcast, that a president, I believe, CEO of an organization had shared that women start businesses because, yes, they want to make money, but because they think they can improve something, they can do something to better their community. And you just tied that back to the investment side of things as well. And so it speaks to women are going to follow their heart. And usually when you follow your heart, good things come.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think the fact that you can draw parallel in decisions that women are making, it's fantastic. The other thing was, we didn't converse on this one before, but social media. I think there's so much to be said for that, previously traditional media gave you information in pretty consistent, like one way, this is how you're going to get your financial information. Well, today there's so many people out there speaking, and you can find someone that you relate to, and it feels like you can connect and you can digest so much better. And from there, you just keep finding more that fits that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people, especially women, looking for that, because the statistics we have is that only 17% of women are very confident that they can retire with a comfortable lifestyle. And that's not even thinking about some major donation to any education or charity, just trying to live a comfortable lifestyle, only 17%. Most women just haven't had the time or a guide, a financial advisor who works on your behalf. And, when you're looking for someone to help, look for a fiduciary. Make sure that your needs are put in front of the advisor's needs. But let them guide you to the right choices that fit your own personal situation. And that, I think, helps people build confidence that they can retire comfortably.
Yeah, you bring up a good point of as you're finding things online and, social media, there's a lot of people that can stand up and speak about whatever they want to, just knowing what that background of that individual is, whether it's the fiduciary side of things or are they even licensed in any capacity.
yeah.
And so putting that caveat in here of making sure that you know who you're getting your advice from. Well, Mariann,
Agreed.
asking just this is I love this conversation that we're having, and I feel like we should go so deep with it. How about mentorship?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in mentorship. And as you said early on, a mentorship doesn't have to be a formal arrangement. Probably my first two mentors were my boss and his boss. And they just wanted to share their investment experience with me and kind of their people skills. They'd been around a long time doing this. And they, were sharing this with me. And they were also promoting me to other people. And boy, that's like the ideal situation. Get somebody who's got tons of experience and they're going to promote you as well. As for me and my current mentoring, I'm actually going to dinner tonight with one of my mentors and mentorees, that is, a young woman I've been mentoring for the last few years. And I'm also doing this podcast, like I said earlier. I've started a program for a nonprofit, people who live in public housing. I mean, these are the poorest of the poor. They're housed, but that they don't have much at all. And trying to get them to visualize a better life for themselves. And one of the first things they need to do is open a bank account. And a lot of them have never opened a bank account. A lot of them have parents who've never opened a bank account. So these are very simple things, but explaining to them lending and predatory lending and other aspects of just, like renting their own place and what will keep them in a rental as opposed to them, violating rules they don't even know exist. These are
Right.
all very, very basic things that people need to know. And we're going to be having a series, and I'll bring in guests who are specialists in various things to help bring them up somewhat.
That's fantastic.
Wow. Well, Mariann, I want to, in a way, backing up, but have you always loved numbers and finance? I mean, how far back does this go? Have you always
Okay.
wanted to do this?
Well, I'll say that when I was in grade school, I was really good at math. It just came easily to me.
Sure.
But then later on, they started putting dollars and dollar signs and cent signs, and all of a sudden, those numbers just started to dance. I was like, "Whoa, numbers, money! This is really good." And so that leads me to a little story. In 8th grade, I was asked to write a book report on some person. And I just figured, I want to know about John D. Rockefeller. You hear about Rockefeller Center and Rockefeller this and all that. So I read the book about him, and I thought for my book report, I should get an update on that company that he founded. It was a big oil company. And so I called a brokerage firm. I called Merrill Lynch because, everybody heard about Merrill Lynch.
Sure.
So here I am, this 8th grader calling and saying, what can you tell me about Standard Oil of New Jersey? And the guy on the other end was probably reading some research report produced in New York. And he was, probably reading the bullet points off of it. And he was giving me numbers. I couldn't even write them down about how much acreage in Alaska they're drilling and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I want to be the person who knows all this stuff about a company.
Sure.
And so, I started talking in high school after taking finance classes that, in accounting, that I wanted to be a stockbroker. I wanted to be involved in choosing stocks. And I got laughed at a lot. But during college, I was in the city and I could get to a brokerage firm and work there every afternoon. So I did that for 2 years while I was still in school. And then they offered me a full-time position. And
wow.
That's why I'm here today.
That's excellent.
Isn't it something just to listen to Mariann? And again, it goes back to something she shared of control what you can control. And the bulldog kind of combined together is as an
Yeah.
8th grader calling Merrill Lynch, first of all, and
That's
having
crazy.
the confidence to do that. But what if is kind of the way that I look at that is just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. And I'm so impressed as we continue to go here. So Mariann, I need you to take some of this inspiration that you have been giving and apply it to a couple situations that we see. So what is your advice for and this happens, I think, in Paladin as well as for if anybody, any of our listeners are walking to any office, is first situation is how do you, if you are a partner in a relationship, and oftentimes the male tends to take the lead with the financial side of things, whether right or wrong. That's what we see as a general situation. What if you want to get your foot in the door and your spouse really enjoys it and doesn't really let you in? What would you do?
Oh, I'd say I want to go to the meeting. I want to meet this person and, ask a few questions. And, just each time you meet, ask a couple questions and, get a good feel for who it is. But, you try to treat, you're investing as like a foreign destination. You have to learn the lingo. You have to pick up on a few things and maybe come back and use some of your own questions to go deeper into computer land and find some more answers to give yourself some more confidence for the next meeting. And then at some point in time you might just want to say, well, my partner here is all about growth and small cap stocks and high risk, right? That's high risk, isn't it? Well, it is. Well, I'm not comfortable with that. And with my 401k money, could we put it into, well, not could we, I'd like to put it into something that's more steady eddy, not so volatile. Maybe I want dividends. That's okay to just, have your money managed a little differently than your partner's money.
What fantastic advice that it's not an all or nothing situation. You start carving off little pieces that you're comfortable and then you have plenty of opportunity to add to it as the relationship continues.
Right.
What good advice, Mariann. Okay, situation B here. How do you force yourself in the personal finance realm if you do not enjoy it, but you need to know it? Give us a few nuggets here.
Well, again, if you don't have any financial advisor, but you know that you need help, ask someone who appears to be doing well. It might be your dentist. Maybe he's living well. Maybe your doctor, excuse me, or someone you work with, your boss. Ask them, who do they use for their financial advice? And then, it's kind of like dating. Meet with them, maybe meet with a couple of people and find somebody who seems to be listening to your goals and your objectives, and they can work toward that. Ask them to send you some information and maybe devote an hour a week to reading about it. And after a certain point, you're probably going to say, that's enough for me. I trust this person. And I'm just going to let them do it and then go on with the rest of my life, but you have to develop that level of trust.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I find in my personal space, like how I think through things, you have interest, you get to know a little bit more. And then all of a sudden you get this kind of like this itch that you can't wait for more. You can't wait to get it kind of past this intro and get to the real deal. So hopefully through some of that advice that you said is little steps, baby steps will get you to that.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of people out there who say this is just not that side of my brain, and I want to leave it to somebody else to take care of, a trusted financial advisor.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I previously stated, I think it's important to use this month and really celebrate what we have with Women's History Month and having an understanding of the historical significance that women have played in finance and bring that back to how can we inspire change for the future. And there was nobody better to do that with us than Mariann today, and how encouraging she has been and influential along the way. So some of the things that I've heard Mariann say that I think are good to come back on is finding that opportunity. And we've talked a little bit about mentorship, but it doesn't have to look like that. She gave us the example of the HOA and figuring out how you present opportunities, maybe not for the easiest referral situation, but finding the person, and that could be a female that
Right.
that offers the right perspective. So that was a great one. Clearly, the mentorship side of things was a good one to spend time on, and I appreciate you doing that. And then the timeless answer of control what you can control,
Right.
and just take the steps to do it. It can be just take out the fear. Just take out the fear and take a step forward, whatever that might look like. And one of the other things that I didn't come back on during the show that I think it's worthwhile of mentioning now is you said something that just resonated with me: is do good in your community, do good for others, and amazing things will happen. And that came back to the public housing. It came back to you having dinner tonight, and it showed up in a variety of ways. And so I think that was a good message. I don't know if that was the one you were meaning to deliver, but I think it goes back to who you are as a person. Is there anything that we have missed or that you want to share as we wrap up today, Mariann?
Well, here's a story, my last story, about, just to be successful in life, one needs to be strong and assertive and ask for help. A lot of people do not like to ask for help, but it's necessary. And, having a childlike sense of curiosity is very helpful there. So ask for help. Be open to questions from other people, and answer them as best you can. But here's the personal story. When my father was a pilot during World War II, and by the way, my dad is turning 104 in a few months, so we still have these conversations. But we were talking about how he became lost over France. And he had to land his plane, and the only person around, or the first person he saw, was a little girl about 8 years old. And he asked her, "What's the name of the nearby town?" Because he really had no clue. And she told him, and he realized that he was in German occupied territory. So he had to hustle and get back into that plane and take off again. And, it just goes to show that, sometimes we all need to ask for help, and we'll take our help from people of any shape or size who can put us on track and help us to reach our goals. And don't put off people because they don't look like you, or they don't act like you, or they're bigger than you or smaller than you. Just ask for help and get on your way.
And right there is why Mariann has been a history maker, a leader in our industry, and a leader just in who she is and setting the tone for being a good person. So, Mariann, I couldn't
Thank you.
be more happy for you to be with us today and for paving the way for myself and for other women. And so, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, as we wrap up, I'll just say, if our listeners are interested in hearing more from Mariann, again, continue to follow along with some of the initiatives she's doing, and we'll put the website there in the show notes. And then from a Paladin perspective, you can always reach us at 651-842-8406 or visit us at paladinfinancial.com. That will give you access to the podcast as well as getting you to all the right places from a social media perspective. With that, Tony, anything else to add, or Mariann?
Wow, great show. Thank you, Mariann. It's so great to have you here.
Thank
I
you.
mean, fantastic. That's really good. Now, I want to say her website one more time for her. That's thrivingwithyourmoneytree.com.
Right.
All right. And wow, that's it for today. Great show. Thanks, Mariann. And don't forget, tune in each week wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube. That does it for today's episode of Paladin Financial Talk.
Very good.
You were so good, Mariann. Oh my gosh. I think